Hello everyone, I'm Tripolar Bear, and today we're talking about Poison Blade Vortex Assassin, one of the best League starters out there for Heist League. Blade Vortex is a physical spell that spawns ethereal blades around you for a duration. We're going to take advantage of the physical damage from this spell and its duration to cause each blade to poison on hit. Poison is an ailment that deals chaos damage over time based on the physical plus chaos damage of the initial hit. We're going to use this in conjunction with Plague Bear for insane clear speed on minimal investment and very, very good single target with poison stacks. Activating Plague Bear causes you to deal less poison damage, but store that damage as a plague value. Activating again releases stored poison in an area around you, dealing chaos damage over time until your plague value is depleted. The best part about this skill is that you don't need, or you can't even, link any damage supports to it. The only support you need to link to Plague Bear is increased area of effect or empower to increase its levels. This is because it's storing your poison damage after it has already been scaled by you, so you can't scale its damage twice. High clear with Obliteration Wands and Plague Bear, high single target with Blade Vortex poisoning, and Plague Bear releasing stored poison damage means this is a very, very solid League start ability choice. Obliteration Wands are very cheap and extremely good League start weapons for easy map clear and satisfying explosion mechanics. This build is going to rely on your mechanical skill on map boss fights and bosses in the late game, as you need to manually dodge and know when you can cast BV and when you need to go in. We are going to use dodge on this build as a sort of safety net when our mechanical skill fails us. This means you do not want to be relying on dodge as some form of tanking, boss hits, or otherwise. You want to use it as a safety net for when you mess up and accidentally eat an attack or spell that you should not have. In a League start scenario, this is extremely viable, as your clear is very good even without Obliteration Wands and becomes amazing alongside them. Plague Bearer will carry you all the way through the leveling and through red maps with only minimal brain power needed. We scale our damage off of an initial physical and chaos damage hit inflicting a poison, with poison being a damage over time ailment and assassin allowing us to gain even more damage by giving us bonus ailment damage with critical strikes. We can scale damage over time multiplier, chaos damage over time multiplier, chaos damage, poison damage, physical damage, duration and poison duration, and critical strike multiplier because of perfect agony and our assassin ascendancy. For clearing, our clear comes from poisoning a few monsters in a pack and Obliteration Wands exploding the rest of the pack. Plague Bearer uptime will take care of any stragglers and make legions even in red maps a breeze. We use Unleash on Blade Vortex to speed up our blade stack generation for faster clearing and an easier time ramping up to 10 blade stacks for bosses. 10 blades poisoning and Plague Bear up will delete all content in the game. For our defense, we use Acrobatics and Spell Acro to give us a decent dodge chance. Pairing this up with Vol Grace on bosses allows us to be dodge capped and evasion capped with our flasks up. Pairing this with a level 20 steel skin on our left mouse click allows us to have a huge buffer in the form of dodge, evasion, and steel skin for when our mechanical skill will fail us. When we do miss a dodge, the Wind Dancer Notable causes us to take 20% less damage and gives us more evasion rating after being hit at the cost of 40% less when we haven't been hit recently. With Kintsugi providing a similar effect to stack alongside it, we also obtain another source of less damage taken. On top of all of this, we will also be utilizing the Mist Wall Shield in our offhand, giving us maximum chance to block attack damage if you have not blocked recently. All of these combined are good defensive layers we can rely on if our dodge and evade chance fails us. For our passive skill tree, we will path into damage over time wheels, critical strike chance and multiplier wheels, damage over time multiplier for poisons, and for defense, we pick up maximum life and dodge chance with the acrobatics chain. For our assassin ascendancy, in order, we're going to pick up noxious strike, giving us more poison damage and damage multiplier, a whopping 40% chance to poison on hit, poison duration for each poison inflicted recently, and 0.5% life recovery per poison affecting enemies you kill. Next is toxic delivery, giving us reduced damage taken from damage over time. Poisons we inflict with critical strikes deal 50% more damage. 0.4 base critical strike chance per poison on an enemy, up to 2% base crit, and 20 physical damage as extra chaos damage against poisoned enemies. Next, we're going to pick up Mistwalker from Merc Lab, which gives us Elusive on crit. Elusive is a temporary buff that grants 15% chance to dodge spell and attacks, and 30% movement speed. The buff effect reduces over time until it removes itself at 0% effect. You cannot gain Elusive if you already have Elusive. We also will gain 15% attack and cast speed while Elusive, 8% reduced damage taken while Elusive, and 25% increased Elusive effect. And we will take no extra damage from critical strikes while Elusive. Lastly, from Uber Lab, Opportunistic gives damage from my critical strikes, cannot be reflected, 20% increased movement speed if we've killed recently, 10% reduced damage taken while there are at least 2 rare or unique enemies nearby, and 25% more damage while there is at least 1 rare or unique enemy nearby. In our path of building, we are going to use the community fork. You can find the link for the community fork down in the description, and I highly recommend you download and update to the newest version of the community fork for path of building, as there are many things missing in the base normal path of building fork. In my path of building, you will find leveling trees going from level 1 to 12, 12 to 33, where you will do normal lab, 30 to 55, where you'll do cruel lab, and 55 to 70, you want to do Merc Lab before you kill Kitava. There will be a moderate level investment tree with no cluster jewels, and an endgame tree with expensive and very good cluster jewel setups. In the path of building, there will be 4 different gear sets that you can use at different tiers of play. I have a league starting gear set for examples of what the character will look and feel like coming out of the leveling experience and into maps. I have a cheap, which is 0 to 25 chaos needed to play at this level, even in league start. Next is the moderate level, with 10 to 100 chaos needed to reach this tier of play. And the last is the end game goal. This is going to be multiple exalts worth of gear, especially in a league start, as prices will be highly inflated with very high demand and very low supply. The end game is absolutely not needed. I have only included this end game as a sort of goal for items you can slowly work towards and progress your character to higher and higher tiers of gameplay. Next, we're going to talk about how you can level, in a league start scenario, your Poison Blade Vortex Assassin. While leveling this build, and any spellcaster build, you need to take advantage of one extremely important vendor recipe. You need to vendor 1 magic scepter, wand, or rune dagger with a magic ruby, topaz, or sapphire ring, and 1 orb of alteration. At level 20, you can do the same recipe, but with a rare ring. Using essences is a very easy way to get this rare ring. Starting from level 12, crafting resistance onto your gear is a very, very easy way to cap your resistances at 75%. I like to find gear with one resistance on it already, then craft a resistance on top of it from the crafting bench that you can find in your hideout. This resistance craft is only one transmutation orb and could be crafted onto any piece of gear, even if it is a normal or white item. To level Poison Blade Vortex, start with Ethereal Knives linked to Lesser Poison. I'll use this until level 8, where you can pick up and link Ethereal Knives to Added Lightning and Added Cold. Alongside having your vendor recipe wand, this will give a lot of flat damage and will definitely carry you through the very early parts of the axe. Make sure you pick up Dash at level 4 and Flame Dash at level 10 before Merveil. Once you hit level 12 and enter Merveil's cave, you can go and buy Blade Vortex and link it to Lesser Poison and Void Manipulation. You will use this for single target only, as you can ramp up a lot of blades before bosses spawn. For now, Ethereal Knives will be better for pack-to-pack clearing outside of bosses. After Merveil, pick up Smoke Mine and try to use this in conjunction with Flame Dash for very fast movement and a movement speed buff from Smoke Mine. In Act 2, you can pick up Herald of Agony and Skitterbots for free shock and chill. You can also pick up the Deadly Ailment support and use that in your Blade Vortex setup. At level 24, pick up Plague Bear, as it will carry you through the entire leveling process and through red maps. I cannot overstate how important it is to just use Plague Bear. It fills up super fast and deals a ton of damage. Plague Bearer cannot gain damage from links, so increased area of effect is the only thing you should link to it for now. Pick up Despair as well at level 24, and self-cast that on bosses, making them take increased chaos damage. In Act 4, when you get Unleash, you can start to use Blade Vortex as your main single target and clear ability alongside Plague Bearer. These two abilities should carry you through the entire game. In Act 6, after helping Lily clear the Twilight Strand, you can obtain Spell Totem, Multiple Totem, and Wither to apply Wither stacks to bosses very, very quickly. Wither is an ability that applies a debuff, causing monsters to take 6% increased chaos damage, stacking up to 15 times. That means monsters are taking 90% increased chaos damage taken. You absolutely need to have this for any chaos damage build. Our leveling tree focuses on getting physical damage, chaos damage, and damage over time multiplier. We will grab most chaos damage over time and poison wheels while picking up the life that is nearby. The big defensive points in the tree are the acrobatic keystones and the Wind Dancer keystone. Acrobatics giving us much needed attack and spell dodge, while Wind Dancer gives us less damage taken if not hit recently, and more evasion rating when you have been hit recently. For our bandits and pantheons, we will choose, since we are a crit build, a Lyra, critical strike multiplier, and extra all resistance on League Start. It is all very nice. For our pantheon, we will choose Soul of Lunaris for the major, for our increased speed and defensives, and extra dodge if we are hit. For our minor god, we will choose Garuken to evade more attacks if we've taken a large hit, and extra movement speed if we have not been hit recently. Next are our main links. For our main damage, we will use Vol, Blade Vortex, Unleash, Unbound Ailments, Void Manipulation, Deadly Ailments, and Vile Toxins. For upgrading our main damage links into Awakened versions, the first ones you want to get are Awakened Unleash if you can afford it, Awakened Unbound Ailments, Awakened Deadly Ailments, and lastly, Awakened Void Manipulation. Alongside Blade Vortex, we will also be using Plague Bear. As its level increases, it becomes better and better, and cannot be supported to increase its damage, so we will link it in a 3-link to increased area of effect and empower to increase its level and damage. For our auras, on the defensive side, we will be using Flesh and Stone and the Sand Stance to take reduced damage from enemies not nearby us, and we will blind nearby enemies. For our offensive aura, we will use Malevolence for more damage over time, and Herald of Agony for more poison damage, and a nice little friend. Lastly, if you can fit it in, we will use Precision at a low level for a little bit of increased critical strike chance. For our debuffs, the curse we will be using is a Witchfire Brew, giving us a Despair Aura. Our other, and even more important than the curse debuff, is going to be Wither. Wither is an insane damage increase. We will put it on spell and multiple totem to apply Wither stacks without us requiring to be there casting Wither ourselves. This allows us to focus on dodging and keeping our Blade Vortex stacks up. For buffs, we will use Vol Grace to dodge cap us and allow for many extra mistakes to be made, and Blood Rage for our frenzy charges. For a guard skill, we choose Steel Skin, and we'll put it on our left mouse button to activate it on cooldown, giving us a 2,200 damage buffer shield in case we get hit. We will link this with Flame Dash and Second Wind for cooldown recovery speed, allowing us to use both Flame Dash and Steel Skin much more often. Now, let's talk about our gearing. For the cheap tier, in our weapon slot, we will use an Obliteration Wand for the physical gained as extra chaos damage and the 20% chance to explode on kill. If you want extra clear, you can buy another Obliteration Wand. If you want to survive more, you can pick up an On's Heritage or Mist Wall. In our helmet, it will be a rare with resistance and life. Our body armor on League Start will be, as soon as we can, a Corrupted 6-link. This is not needed in white maps, but will be very, very helpful once we hit the yellow and red tier of maps. On League Start, you can find a Corrupted 6-link chest piece with at least one good stat on it for cheaper than a Tabula Rasa. All you need to make sure to do is to look for the correct colors on the Corrupted 6-link chest piece. With many people playing and doing the Vol side areas, there is normally a very large number of 6-linked body armors to choose from. So try to find one that has a little bit of life or a little bit of resistance on it to help you out. If you feel you do not need a Corrupted 6-link chest piece, you can save your money for now and buy a better chest piece in the moderate tier later on. Our gloves will be rares with life and resistance. Our boots will be rares with life and resistance until we can afford or obtain an Adziri step. If our resistances are capped, this is a very nice boot option as it gives us a lot of spell damage, 30 movement speed, and a very nice amount of life. Our amulet is going to be a rare with resistance and life on a lapis base. Since obliteration wands require 179 intelligence, we need to get all the intelligence we can on any piece we can for as free as possible. Also, make sure you get chaos resistance, as you'd like to ideally be hitting a minimum of 0 while you're in maps. Our rings are going to be a huge place to fill out our resistances. With so many different base types that have resistance implicits, try to find one with a resistance and life and an open suffix so we can craft yet another resistance on top of it. Our belt will be a place to get extra strength if we need it, more resistance, and more life. Our flasks are extremely important for our damage and survivability, so make sure you use them as often as possible while mapping. The first flask is an instant life flask with bleeding or freeze immunity. The second is our enduring eternal mana flask with freezing or bleeding immunity, whichever you did not get on your life flask. Our third flask, and one of the very, very important flasks to obtain, is Coralito's Signature. Coralito's Signature gives us a lot of increased duration of poisons that we inflict during the flask effect, and grants us Perfect Agony during flask effect as well. Perfect Agony, our critical strike multiplier, also applies to damage over time multipliers for ailments from critical strikes at 50% of their value, at the cost of 30% less damage with our hits. This flask is extremely important to obtain as soon as possible on League Start. It drops at a very low level. It's a diamond flask as well, so our critical strike chance is lucky, which makes us crit much more often. This should be very affordable on League Start, as I don't see it getting much higher than a few chaos at max. Next is going to be an Experimenter's Quicksilver Flask of Warding. Lastly, if you can afford it, an Adziri's Promise is a very good flask for damage and a little bit of survivability. If not, feel free to pick up a Jade Flask or a Basalt Flask for a little more survivability. Next, in the moderate tier of investment, we will still use an Obliteration Wand, as the 20% chance to explode is very, very important for our clear. It makes clearing packs and rare monsters much easier and much faster. Our offhand upgrade is going to be Mist Wall, giving us maximum block chance if we've not blocked recently. This gives us one more freebie hit that we can tank, with Wind Dancer and Kitsugi there if the shield fails us. In our helmet slot, the next big change is going to be an important one, so you need to pay attention. We will need both of these items at the same time. The first being Maw of Conquest, the second is the Golden Rule. We need both of these together to allow us to poison ourselves while also being unaffected by poison. This means that we can have poison stacks on ourselves and we can obtain new poison stacks, but the poison will not be damaging us. This combination gives us a lot of free chaos resistance and poison duration from Assassin's Noxious Strike Ascendancy, giving 5% poison duration for each poison you have inflicted recently. These count towards poisons we inflict onto ourselves, giving us a lot of free poison duration. The only important helmet enchant to keep an eye out for is the Blade Vortex Duration enchantment. For our body armor, the next big upgrade is a better chest piece. At even a 5 link, a Kintsugi or Perfect Form would be a very good upgrade for your survivability. Kintsugi giving another Wind Dancer type effect of less damage taken if not hit recently, and Perfect Form allowing you to reserve Arctic armor for free physical damage reduction and reduced fire damage taken. Out of these two, I do recommend Kitsugi, as it should give damage reduction when it is the most important. That is, when you make a mistake and take a hit you shouldn't have. In our gloves, we're going to use a rare to cap resistance and get a lot of life. Our boots should be a series step for the amazing spell dodge chance, nice life, and 30 movement speed. If you have an option for boot enchant, you want the extra spell dodge if you've taken spell damage recently. In our amulet, you want to get more life and resistance once again. And if you have the oils to anoint, you want to do Sipa Opalescent for potency of will if you find a decent enough amulet. In our ring slot, we want a Shaper or Crusader base with life gained for each enemy hit by your spells, as this is a very important part of our life sustain. In our belt slot, if you can, get a Stygian belt with life and resistance and put any useful abyssal jewel in it. Some very important abyssal jewels that you could put in this belt is an Onslaught on Kill Abyss Jewel. An Onslaught on Kill Abyss Jewel allowing us to run a Jade Flask or Unique Flask instead of a Silver Flask. In our Flask slot, we will replace Adziri's Promise with Witchfire Brew, giving us our Despair Curse aura and allowing us to not have to self-cast on bosses. The very first cluster jewel you should get is a large chaos damage cluster with the mod Overwhelming Malice for the chance to gain Unholy Might for 4 seconds on critical strike. Unholy Might is a buff that gives us 30% of our physical damage as extra chaos damage, increasing our base poison damage by a ton. Next is the expensive tier of gameplay. These are items that are goals to work towards and are not needed or expected to have in this build. Obliteration in our weapon slot is still very good for clear, but can be subbed out for Cold Iron Point Dagger if you need the extra damage. In our offhand, the free max block we get from Mistwall is very hard to give up, but if you feel safe enough, go ahead and equip 2 Obliteration Wands or 2 Cold Iron Point Daggers. The next upgrades need to be obtained simultaneously, just like Maw of Conquest and Golden Rule. you need to obtain the Devouring Diadem. And since we will be replacing Maw of Conquest, we need a Watcher's Eye with unaffected by poisons while affected by malevolence. The Devouring Diadem will let us reserve more auras since it gives Socketed Gems 20% reduced mana reservation. It also has a Veiled modifier. On this, you want increased duration of ailments you inflict while focused. This is a huge damage boost, as it lets our poisons stack up and ramp and last much, much longer. The helmet also gives Feast of Flesh, which recovers a lot of energy shield, life, and mana every 5 seconds, based on how many corpses it has consumed. And lastly, it gives Eldritch Battery, which causes us to spend energy shield before mana for skills, and makes our energy shield protect our mana before life. This makes it much easier to reserve large percentages of our mana without worrying about the mana costs of our abilities. A good enchant to get on this is Blade Vortex Duration, as the king for clear and for our bossing. In our body armor, the biggest upgrade you can get off of the moderate tier is a 6-link Kintsugi and Awakened Gems for a lot more damage. In our gloves, we are going to use this slot on a hunter base to get chaos damage overtime multiplier, fill out our resistance, and get more life and any other stat you might be missing. In our boot slot, having hunter influence means we have access to poisons you inflict deal damage faster, and tailwind, life, resistance, and movement speed. The spell dodge enchant is what we would still want at this tier. In our amulet, we can get +1 dexterity gem levels, which boosts our blade vortex damage and supports a lot. We can also get chaos damage overtime multiplier, life, and resistance, with the anoint still being Sipa Opalescent. Our ring slots, we still want life gained on hit for spells and resistance, but on one of the rings, we can also pick up Despair on hit. Our belt will be a Stygian Vice with a lot of flat and percent life, some resistance, and aspect of the spider if you want more damage instead of having flesh and stone. For our cluster jewels, we want large clusters with Overwhelming Malice, Wicked Paul, and Unspeakable Gifts. On our medium cluster jewels, we want Hemorrhage and Flow of Life. And for our small cluster jewels, we want Born of Chaos for +3 maximum chaos resistance, and Fettle for a lot of life. In our Abyss jewels, a random jewel with Corrupted Blood mod is very, very good, but if we can get an Onslaught on kill Abyss jewel with the Corrupted Blood modifier, this knocks out 2 birds with 1 stone and allows us to pick up an entire extra rare jewel with damage or life modifiers. The Corrupted Blood implicit is extremely important for maps, as it lets us drop our Bleed Flask, and it helps even in the Cyrus fight, as Cyrus can and will inflict corrupting blood stacks on you. One of the coolest and most important parts about this build and how we can survive so much more is abusing all of that extra chaos resistance that we've obtained. We're going to do this by picking up a glorious vanity, which you get from killing Legion encounters, sacrificed in the name of Zibakwa. This is going to change any keystone in the radius into divine flesh. This makes us take half of our elemental damage as chaos damage and gives us +10 maximum chaos resistance, allowing us to effectively have 85 max resistance to half of all elemental damage. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you guys all have a great League start. Make sure you subscribe to see more of my League start videos. I've got a couple more coming out. And follow me on Twitch to just see what League start I'm doing. Maybe if you're struggling somewhere, feel free to ask me some questions. I do 1 free build roast per day. So if you're quick enough, you get that 1 freebie. But anyway, I'll catch you guys later. I'll see you on launch. Peace out until then.